Yo, how you doing? How's it going? Back in black with some more enlisted gameplay. Today, I wanted to talk about tanks and how you have to use them nowadays in comparison to how you could use them a few weeks ago after they made an update that actually updated the peepholes and gunner scopes to be historically accurate. But before I get into it, if you guys are new to this channel and you like shooting games, make sure you guys aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It really helps me out as a small YouTuber, and it'll make sure the teammates that you get actually play the objective. So yeah, let's get into it. So, if you guys are longtime players or big fans of tanks in this game, I'm sure you have noticed the change from the original gunner scope to a more zoomed in magnification. Honestly, it might as well be a sniper scope if we're being real, but after a few games, it is something that I have gotten used to again. And what I have noticed is that you now actually have to use more of your crewmen to get the most out of your tank. And as far as as far as locating and destroying enemies. But before the update, you typically could just be in the gunner seat the whole time and have no need or, real reason to switch between your actual crewmen. And the reason is because the field of view was actually wide enough to where you could see everything that was going on in a pretty decent angle, like maybe a 45-degree angle. I'm not exactly sure how it was before, but it was good to the point where you didn't need to actually, switch to the commander seat. Not only that, the increased peripheral vision made it easy to maneuver your tank around the map, and it made it easier to spot enemies, generally speaking. But now, because the gunner sight is zoomed in so far, it's way more practical to switch between your driver or commander in order to, actually see where you're going or what's going on the battlefield. Steering isn't that much of a daunting task in the Normandy and Moscow campaigns as long as you avoid compact city streets and trenches. But in the Berlin campaign, the importance of using your commander view to avoid like rubble hills or destroyed trolley trains or anything else that could impede your tank's path or like make it impossible for you to keep going where you're trying to go. It becomes much more prevalent than it was in any other campaign, and the zoomed in optics doesn't it doesn't really add to the ease of maneuvering tanks around. Another aspect that I noticed about the historically accurate viewing angles is that it makes tanks much more reliant on, your infantry spotting, which to me is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because, in terms of being historically accurate, the point of armor is to support infantry, obviously. Like that's, it makes it easier for them to advance and move up, or it makes it easier for them to hold an objective. So it makes sense that soldiers should have to mark targets that, tanks should focus on. Otherwise, it's very hard for the tank to pinpoint anybody to shoot at a lot of the time unless you're like a seasoned player and you know the spawns and generally where enemies tend to come from. The issue arises when the intended gameplay doesn't come to fruition because teammates don't mark enemies, let alone work together with their tanks to actually win a game. And again, this is something that I experience on console. I don't know how it is on PC. Maybe tank players on PC are in very good cohesion with their infantry and everybody spots on PC and stuff like that. But I noticed on console, a lot of people, or very rarely, people tend to spot, anything that is of importance, whether that be planes, tanks, or even enemy infantry on a flank or something like that. So, it makes it harder to use tanks overall. So at this point, I'm kind of at a fork in the road as far as how the historically accurate viewing angles for tanks makes me feel. I appreciate the historical accuracy and like how they're trying to be authentic and make the game feel how it actually would have felt to be in World War II. And I also appreciate how it makes you work closer together with your infantry to be more effective, especially since the armor is there to support the infantry. And infantry is the main component or core component of the game. So the better your infantry is, the more likely you are to win a game, right? It shouldn't be like tanks carrying the whole team all the way through, unless it was a very effective tank working together with a very effective team. So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about that. And I'm not trying to say that these historically accurate viewing angles like force you to work together with your infantry, because once you get used to switching back and forth between your commander and your gunner and your driver, you can spot people pretty easily, especially if you, like I said before, if you know the spawns in general direction where the enemy is coming from. And you can just park your tank in advantageous angles, and most of the time they won't even know you're there. Especially if you're playing the lone fighters or hardcore mode, most of the time you can go unnoticed or stay in the tank the whole game with no issues if you're really good at it. But I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the casual player because, like, from their perspective, tanks were already kind of hard to use before. And now what developers have basically done is they made it so that, they made them harder to use because they are less independent than how they were before when you could see more general of the area around you. I'm getting my words tangled up a little bit. But basically, what I'm getting at is that there is now more of a skill gap when it comes to the usage of tanks. And I don't know if the casual players are more for that or if it just kind of deters them from using tanks altogether. Generally speaking, I would say I'm seeing tanks a lot less on console. I play on PS5, or at least your average player doesn't want to deal with the hard to use camera angles. And is it just me, or when like when you're using a tank and you switch to your commander and you look out the hatch, does your commander become like a bullet magnet and like all the AI just kind of look at him and like shoot him? Because I don't know, that's kind of how it happens when I look out the hatch, but I don't know if that's anybody else's experience. Let me know how that is down in the comments. But yeah, I don't know if your typical casual player wants to get used to having to switch between the commander to look around, then switch back to the gunner, then spin the turret in the direction of where you found the enemy. The enemy might not even be there anymore, and then more often than not, you're dealing with teammates who don't want to mark anything. So half of the time, it seems like a lot of players are sitting in those tanks for no reason, or they're not really doing anything productive. And if it's not that, then it's somebody who is being overly dominant in a tank, and that's obviously a very well seasoned player who got used to using the historically accurate viewing sites, myself being one of those players. But yeah, like, just trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's like new to the game, I don't know if they would find that appealing considering how hard it is to use tanks now. Unless, again, like I was saying in other videos, you guys can like find the developers, I should say, can find a way to encourage your teammates to like spot more, or like maybe give like points for like spotting enemies accurately. I'm not sure. Maybe that could incentivize it a little more to for infantry to work better with their vehicles. I'm not sure. But like I was saying, generally speaking, I do appreciate the intended effect of it, and I do appreciate the fact that they're being historically accurate as well, because this is an authentic World War II shooter. I'm just kind of at a crossroads because I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Like, if you're a casual player, or even if you play this game a lot, like, how do you feel about the tanks? Like, do you still use them a lot? Did you use them more back then when you could see more area in front of you? And like, when you usually use tanks, does infantry usually spot for you in support, or like, do you find yourself kind of just roaming around by yourself and learning where people generally come from? Like, do you even care about tanks and enlisted at all? Do you even care for the vehicles? Like I said, let me know down in the comments. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next video. Black guy out.